Jared Kushner walks into Congress thinking it's just another friendly hearing. He has no idea what Jasmine Crockett is about to do to him. She's holding a single document, one that will change everything. It's from Saudi Arabia's own advisors. Their official recommendation: do not invest. But Mohammed bin Salman gave Kushner $2 billion anyway. Why? What happens in the next 37 seconds will destroy the Kushner name forever. Kushner thought his connections made him untouchable. He came without lawyers. That was his first mistake. When Congresswoman Crockett asks her final question, "Did you sell American foreign policy for $2 billion?" He goes completely silent. 37 seconds, no answer. Just him twisting his wedding ring while 50 million people watch. This moment will be remembered as something bigger than Watergate. The day America discovered the president's son-in-law had been working for Saudi Arabia all along, and that a murdered journalist's blood had helped pay for it. He moved through the room like water flowing downhill, effortless, composed, practiced. 44 years old, wearing what's almost certainly a Tom Ford suit. Maybe Brioni, the kind of tailoring that whispers luxury instead of shouting it. He nods at someone in the Republican section, flashes that small, knowing smile, and takes his seat at the witness table as if he's there to discuss the weather, not defend himself against accusations of selling out his country. What's immediately striking is that he's alone. No lawyers flanking him, no crisis PR team hovering nearby with talking points, just Kushner scrolling through his phone, laughing softly at something a staffer whispers. He has no idea that 20 feet away, Jasmine Crockett is sitting beside 4 banker boxes stacked neatly by color, red to black, blue and white, each one filled with evidence that will destroy his credibility forever. Crockett rests her hand on the red box, her face calm, unreadable, the mask of a prosecutor who's done this before. She learned long ago in Dallas courtrooms that you don't walk in with theories. You walk in with evidence, with receipts, with facts that can't be spun or explained away. Her chief of staff leans in and whispers something urgent, but she just nods, never taking her eyes off Kushner. He's straightening his silk tie, settling into his chair like a man expecting an easy afternoon. Meanwhile, she's thinking about a photograph of a journalist who walked into a consulate and never came out. She's thinking about $2 billion. And she's thinking about 37 seconds of silence that haven't happened yet, but soon will. Chairman Garcia raises the gavel and brings it down with a sharp crack that echoes through the suddenly quiet room. "This hearing of the House Oversight Committee will come to order," he says with practiced formality. Normally that tone makes everything sound more important than it is, but this time it really is important. This time history is about to be made, though only Crockett and her team know it. Today, we examine United States energy security policy and strategic partnerships in the Middle East. Mr. Kushner, you're appearing voluntarily, and we appreciate that. You have 10 minutes for an opening statement. Kushner stands smoothly, his confidence radiating. His voice is calm and measured, the kind of tone polished in boardrooms and TV studios. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee," he begins, launching into his prepared remarks. He speaks about his time in the White House, the Abraham Accords, peace in the Middle East, and strengthening American interests. As he talks, Crockett's pen moves steadily across her notepad. She's writing, underlining, drawing boxes, not looking up, but absorbing every word like a prosecutor collecting lies to dismantle later. "Everything I did in the White House was in service of American interests," Kushner says, his voice steady, his eyes meeting the Democrats across from him. "Every meeting, every recommendation, every conversation with foreign leaders. I never once considered personal benefit." There it is, the line he's just drawn, the claim she'll use to destroy him. Crockett's pen stops. She draws a box around those words twice. Kushner shifts smoothly into talking about his private equity firm, Affinity Partners, how he founded it after leaving public service, how global investors trust his expertise, how the Saudi Public Investment Fund is just one of several investors. He glides right past the real number with practiced ease, saying one of several instead of $2 billion from the Saudi government. Republicans nod approvingly, exactly the defense they wanted. A clean narrative, Middle East peace, investment confidence, American leadership. When he finishes, he sits back satisfied. He thinks he's already won. Chairman Garcia glances toward Jasmine Crockett. His look says he suspects what's coming. "Representative Crockett, you have 30 minutes for questions." She rises slowly, deliberately. The room leans forward, sensing something is about to happen. When she finally speaks, her voice is gentle. Too gentle. the kind that makes you nervous because it feels like the calm before a storm. Mr. Kushner, thank you for your opening statement. She begins. Before we talk about your time in government, I'd like to clarify your current business. You run Affinity Partners, a private equity firm focused on growth investments. Is that correct? Kushner nods easily. Yes, Congresswoman. That's correct. A private equity firm focused on growth investments in technology, real estate, and infrastructure. And you founded this firm in April of 2021, roughly 6 months after your father-in-law left office. He nods again. That's right. And the Saudi Public Investment Fund invested in your firm. Correct. The PIF is one of several institutional investors, he answers, keeping his tone even. Crockett doesn't blink. How much did the Saudi Public Investment Fund invest in Affinity Partners? $2 billion, he says quietly. $2 billion, she repeats louder this time, letting it echo through the room. And what was the total size of your fund when you launched? Approximately $3 billion? Crockett picks up a calculator and begins pressing buttons slowly, though she already knows the math. So, $2 billion out of 3, that's 67%. That means the Saudi government funded 2/3 of your entire firm. That's not one of several investors, Mr. Kushner. That's your primary investor. Before he can spin another answer, she opens the red folder. The movement is slow, deliberate. The projector hums to life, casting a document onto the wall behind her. A simple page, few words but devastating ones. Jared Kushner, private equity experience. Prior to founding Affinity Partners, 0 years. The 0 looks enormous on the screen. Avoid where expertise should be. Mr. Kushner, Crockett says evenly, before launching Affinity Partners, how many years of experience did you have managing private equity investments? He hesitates, tries to redirect. I had extensive business experience in real estate. Private equity specifically, she interrupts with surgical precision. Managing institutional capital, making growth investments, building and running firms. How many years? Silence. He twists his wedding ring once before finally admitting, I didn't work specifically in private equity before Affinity. So, 0 years, she says, letting it hang. No track record, no portfolio, no proven strategy. And yet you expected sovereign funds to trust you with billions. The projector changes again. A new document appears, this one stamped in red, leaked. Authenticated across the top in Arabic and English. Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. Internal Due Diligence Report. Kushner's face tightens. Crockett begins reading aloud. Her tone clinical, detached. Management team lacks private equity investment experience. No demonstrated track record in target sectors. Proposed fee structure excessive. Investment thesis unclear. Operational infrastructure underdeveloped. Risk assessment high. She pauses after each line, each phrase stacking on the last. Then she says the word that ends his defense. Recommendation. A long pause. Do not invest. The words drop like stones. The room goes silent except for reporters typing furiously. Kushner's hand moves again to his ring, twisting it. This is the Saudi Public Investment Fund's own report, she says, stepping closer. Their experts said you were unqualified, that your fees were too high, that the risk was unacceptable. They said no, and yet somehow you still got $2 billion. How did that happen? Before he can answer, the screen changes again. Now showing a photo of Mohammed bin Salman, young, confident, staring straight into the camera. The Crown Prince personally overrode this recommendation, she says, despite the risk, despite the inexperience. Why would he do that, Mr. Kushner? Why would he overrule his advisors to give you $2 billion? What exactly was he paying for? She doesn't wait for an answer. The screen changes again, this time to a timeline connecting Kushner's personal finances to foreign policy. March-May 2017. Kushner Companies desperately seeks refinancing for 666 Fifth Avenue, purchased for $1.8 billion but now underwater. Negotiations ongoing with Qatar's Investment Authority. June 5, 2017. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt impose a total blockade on Qatar. June 6, 2017. President Trump tweets his support for Saudi Arabia against the advice of the Pentagon and State Department. The result? Qatar backs out of the Kushner refinancing deal. Mr. Kushner, Crockett says, is it true that Qatar was negotiating to invest in 666 Fifth Avenue? He hesitates. That was handled through a blind trust. It wasn't a blind trust. She cuts in. You had detailed knowledge. Everyone in New York real estate knew your building was in trouble. She holds up a Wall Street Journal article, Kushner's 666 Fifth Avenue problem. Qatar was negotiating to bail you out. Then Saudi Arabia blockaded Qatar. Then you advised the president to support that blockade, and the Qatar deal collapsed. You expect this committee to believe that's all coincidence? She moves relentlessly forward, laying out weapon sales to Saudi Arabia, $23 billion worth. She reminds the room how the administration declared a national emergency in 2019 to bypass Congress and force through $8 billion in arms sales. Then she holds up a report from the Yemen Data Project, 17,000 civilians killed by airstrikes. American bombs, she says, sold as precision munitions to reduce casualties, instead killing children, patients, wedding guests, and mourners. She looks directly at him. Why, Mr. Kushner? Why was it so important to keep Saudi Arabia armed while they were killing civilians with American weapons? Before he can answer, she moves to the next revelation, nuclear technology transfers. She details how Kushner pushed to give Saudi Arabia access to U.S. nuclear technology, despite warnings from the State Department, the Energy Department, and national security experts. Saudi Arabia has 10 million barrels of oil a day. They don't need nuclear power for electricity, she says, her voice quiet and cutting. But they might want nuclear weapons, and you were willing to help them. She lets the silence hang. The implication is clear, all of it connected to that $2 billion. But before she draws the final line, she says softly, let's talk about October 2nd, 2018. The entire room changes. Everyone knows that date. Everyone knows what's coming next. The room changes the instant she says the date, October 2nd, 2018. Silence fills the air, heavy and different this time. Crockett's voice softens, though the edge in it cuts sharper because of that calm. Mr. Kushner, she asks quietly, do you know who Jamal Khashoggi was? Kushner's hand instinctively goes to his wedding ring again, twisting it once before he speaks. His voice is faint. He was a journalist who was killed in Turkey. Crockett nods slightly. He was more than that. He was a Washington Post columnist, a U.S. resident, a father of 4, a man who believed in freedom of the press, who believed truth mattered more than power. The projector hums. A photo fills the wall behind her. Jamal Khashoggi smiling, wearing glasses, gentle eyes behind them. Just a man in a blazer and collared shirt. A father, a human being. The image lingers there for a long time. 10 seconds, about 20, while the entire room looks at him. Then Crockett continues, her voice barely above a whisper. October 2nd, 2018. Jamal Khashoggi walks into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul because he needs paperwork for his wedding. He's in love. His fiancée drives him there and waits in the car outside. She waits for 11 hours. He never comes out. Someone in the gallery gasps. A reporter stops typing mid-sentence. The only sound in the room is the quiet hum of the projector. Kushner's face is pale now. His eyes stay fixed on the table in front of him, as though if he looks down hard enough, he might vanish into it. Crockett picks up a document with a red classified stamp across the top. Turkish intelligence recorded what happened inside that consulate, she says evenly. I've read the transcripts. Then she looks straight at him. Would you like me to describe what was done to Jamal Khashoggi? Kushner shakes his head slightly. Congresswoman, I don't think the details. She cuts him off sharply. You helped cover it up. You told your father-in-law to stand by the man who ordered it. You protected his killer. And now you want to spare us the details. She opens the document and begins to read. Slow, deliberate, each word landing like a hammer. 15 men arrived on 2 chartered planes, most from the Crown Prince's personal security detail. 1 forensic doctor carried a bone saw. Khashoggi entered at 1:14 p.m. By 1:30 he was dead. She continues, her voice flat and factual, forcing everyone to listen. The audio captures him saying, I can't breathe. The doctor told the others it was just like cutting meat. They dismembered him. They dissolved what was left in acid. His body has never been found. His children will never bury their father. His fiancée will never have a grave to visit. No one moves. No one speaks. Reporters stop typing completely. Even the Republican staffers have gone still. Crockett closes the file with a sharp snap that echoes through the chamber. Then she lifts another paper. Within 48 hours you received classified intelligence briefings. The CIA concluded with high confidence that Mohammed bin Salman personally ordered the killing. Every intelligence agency agreed. You knew that, Mr. Kushner. She holds up Bob Woodward's book for everyone to see. You're quoted here advising the president on how to handle it. You said, and I quote, "We're going to let it blow over." Her voice tightens. A journalist was murdered, dismembered, dissolved in acid, and your advice was to let it blow over. The screen behind her flashes again, a timeline of Kushner's actions after the murder. Intelligence received, private communications with MBS via WhatsApp, efforts to block sanctions, guidance to the president to maintain relations. She steps closer to him. Why did you protect Mohammed bin Salman after he ordered Jamal Khashoggi's murder? She doesn't wait for an answer. Instead, she lifts two things, one in each hand. In her left, Khashoggi's smiling photo. In her right, a document showing the $2 billion Saudi investment. When you were defending MBS after this murder, when you told the president to stay close to him, were you thinking about American values, justice, human rights? Or were you thinking about the business you plan to do with him later? The room erupts. Republicans shout objections. Democrats shout back. Chairman Garcia pounds his gavel, yelling for order. Through the chaos, Jared Kushner doesn't move, his face flushed red, his eyes down, his hand gripping his wedding ring. Silent. It takes 2 full minutes for the shouting to stop. When the room finally quiets, Crockett is still standing, both items still raised. Let the record show, she says steadily. Mr. Kushner declined to answer whether his future business prospects influenced his advice on the Khashoggi murder. She sets both items down on her table, the photo face up beside the $2 billion figure, and then says coldly, "Now, let's talk about what you got in return for 4 years of service to Saudi Arabia." She opens the black box. Inside are financial documents, payment trails, management fees, projections. The projector switches again, displaying them on the screen in stark simplicity. $2 billion investment. 1.25% annual management fee, $25 million per year. 10-year guaranteed term, $250 million total. Performance fees, 20% of profits above hurdle rate. Crockett explains calmly. That's $250 million guaranteed from the same government you helped while in office. Another document appears. 2 columns side by side. Left column supported MBS's consolidation of power, backed the Qatar blockade, pushed $23 billion in weapons sales over Congress's objections, advocated nuclear technology transfer, protected MBS after Khashoggi's murder, maintained private communications on encrypted apps, repeatedly advanced Saudi interests over U.S. policy. Right column, $2 billion investment, $25 million yearly fees, $250 million guaranteed income, lifetime financial security, access to Saudi capital and influence. Look at this, Mr. Kushner, she says quietly, her voice cutting through the silence. Look at what you did for them and look at what they gave you. That's not an investment. That's a payoff. She pauses long enough for the words to land. Mohammed bin Salman didn't give you $2 billion because you were qualified. His own advisors said not to invest. He gave it to you because you spent 4 years serving Saudi interest from inside the White House. Crockett holds up the Saudi due diligence report again, the one stamped, "Do not invest." Then she steps closer, one measured pace at a time. You sold American foreign policy, Mr. Kushner. You used your White House position to help a foreign government. You protected a murderer. You pushed through weapons deals that killed civilians. You advocated for nuclear transfers that threatened global security. You put Saudi interests ahead of America's. And when you left office, they paid you $2 billion. Her voice rises just slightly, not shouting, but filled with finality. That's corruption. The textbook definition, using public office for private gain. Selling your country to the highest bidder. Crockett stands still for a long moment, letting the evidence speak for itself. Every document, every image, every fact laid bare. Then she lowers her tone again, quiet and devastating. Mr. Kushner, I have some simple questions. They should have simple answers. The room leans forward again. When foreign governments wanted to influence U.S. policy, when they wanted access to your father-in-law, was doing business with you an effective strategy? Kushner stammers something about maintaining proper channels, but she cuts him off immediately. Yes or no, Mr. Kushner? Did foreign governments who did business with you get better access to the president? Silence, 10 seconds. 15. His face red, his eyes down, his hand twisting his ring. Let the record show, she says. Mr. Kushner declined to answer. Question 2, she continues. You had 0 private equity experience. Saudi Arabia's own advisors said, don't invest, yet MBS personally gave you $2 billion. Do you expect anyone here to believe that was based on your investment expertise? What exactly did he buy, Mr. Kushner? What was that $2 billion actually paying for? No answer, just silence and the sound of him breathing. Question 3, she says. When you wake up in your Miami office and see that $25 million deposit each year, do you ever think about him? She gestures toward the screen. Khashoggi's smiling face still frozen there. Do you think about Jamal Khashoggi? About the man who was murdered while you were defending his killer? Do you ever hear his voice saying, I can't breathe? Do you ever think about his children? The silence stretches again. 20 seconds. 30. Kushner's face drains of color, his hand frozen on the ring. Let the record show, Crockett says. Mr. Kushner declined to answer. Then she walks back to her table. She picks up both items again, Khashoggi's photo and the $2 billion document, holding them in each hand. Mr. Kushner, she says softly but firmly, I want you to look at these. Really look at them. He doesn't lift his eyes. Look at them, she commands. Slowly, reluctantly, he looks up, first at the photo, then at the number. Here's my final question, she says, her tone grave. And I want you to think carefully because this will define your legacy. Your children will read this testimony someday. The whole country is watching. History is recording this moment. The room goes completely silent. Every camera, every microphone locked on him. Was this public service, Mr. Kushner? Or was this just business? When you helped Mohammed bin Salman consolidate power, when you pushed through arms sales that killed civilians, when you protected him after he murdered Jamal Khashoggi, were you serving the United States of America? Or were you setting up your post-government payday? He opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. Nothing. 5 seconds. 10, 20, 37 seconds of absolute silence. His hand twisting his ring, his face going from pale to red to pale again. The cameras capture every moment. Seconds that will define him forever. 37 seconds that will follow him to his grave. Let the record show, Crockett finally says. Mr. Kushner declined to answer whether he sold American foreign policy for $2 billion. She sets the photo and the document carefully side by side on the table. I have no further questions. The room erupts. Reporters scrambling, cameras flashing, Republicans shouting objections. Chaos swirling around Jared Kushner, sitting perfectly still, silent, hand on his ring, face blank. His world collapsing in real time. Those 37 seconds are already being uploaded, shared, replayed millions of times. The question and the silence inseparable. Did you sell American foreign policy for $2 billion? 37 seconds of nothing. By the time he leaves the room, the world already knows the answer. By the time Jared Kushner leaves that hearing room, the moment is already everywhere. Staffers upload the clip before the session even adjourns. Within 2 hours, it has 15 million views. By nightfall, it's impossible to escape. On every feed, every platform, every screen. The question and the silence are inseparable. Did you sell American foreign policy for $2 billion? Followed by 37 seconds of a man who cannot answer. No words, no excuses, just his hand twisting his wedding ring while the color drains from his face. The image becomes instant iconography. On one side, the smiling face of Jamal Khashoggi. On the other, the $2 billion figure. Protesters printed on signs before the sun sets. Street artists paint murals overnight. By morning, T-shirts appear in cities across the country. The symbol is too simple, too powerful to fade. Even conservative media struggles to spin it. The evidence is too solid. The documents too real. The silence too damning. Fox News commentators stammer through defenses, trying to make it sound like a misunderstanding. But no one can explain away 37 seconds of silence or the leaked Saudi report that literally said, "Do not invest." At 11 p.m., Kushner's lawyers release a carefully worded statement, dull, sterile, and lifeless. All actions were fully compliant with applicable laws, it reads. Affinity Partners is a legitimate investment firm operating transparently within international standards. But the public doesn't buy it. Not after seeing the receipts, not after watching him sit frozen, unable to speak. By Wednesday morning, the fallout begins. The first resignation hits LinkedIn. A mid-level associate at Affinity Partners posting, "I can no longer work for a firm built on blood money. Jamal Khashoggi deserves justice." The post spreads fast, 20,000 shares in 2 hours. By afternoon, 2 more employees quit. By week's end, 6 are gone. The exits alone might not have doomed the firm, But the investors start to panic. They're not Saudi Arabia. They're pension funds, endowments, institutions that believe they were backing a prestigious firm run by a well-connected ex-White House official. Now they're discovering they invested in what looks like a payoff scheme for covering up murder. 3 investors hold emergency board meetings. Lawyers comb through contracts looking for exit clauses. One firm issues a vague statement Friday afternoon. "We are reviewing our position with affinity partners." Everyone understands what that means. They want out. That same Friday, the Department of Justice issues a brief public notice. The department is reviewing recent congressional testimony for potential violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act and related statutes. That one word, FARA, sends shivers down Washington. Every lawyer knows what it implies. If Kushner was effectively serving Saudi interests while in the White House, pretending to act for America while working for a foreign government, that's not just corruption. That's a federal crime. Monday morning, the Senate Intelligence Committee announces its own investigation. They want to know how someone denied a security clearance 40 times by career officials still ended up with access to the nation's most sensitive intelligence. Who overruled the experts? What information did he share? What secrets left the country? The questions multiply faster than anyone can answer them. 3 weeks after the hearing, a whistleblower emerges, a former National Security Council staffer. Behind closed doors, he testifies for 6 hours. What he describes leaks within a day. Kushner, he says, regularly shared classified intelligence with MBS. Policy decisions were discussed with the Saudis before being presented to the president. The debt on 6666 Fifth Avenue was explicitly mentioned in relation to Middle East policy. Multiple officials raised alarms and were ignored or reassigned. There was a clear pattern of serving Saudi interests from inside the White House. By Sunday morning, the Washington Post runs it front page, above the fold. White House officials raised alarms about Kushner's Saudi ties. Whistleblower says. Markets react immediately. Affinity partners' portfolio companies start to dip, not a crash, just a steady, unmistakable decline. Institutional investors quietly sell. Limited partners demand emergency meetings. It's the kind of slow bleed that kills a firm without anyone needing to say the word collapse. A month later, Saudi Arabia sends a quiet message through back channels. No public announcement, no press release, just whispers to financial reporters about rebalancing investment portfolios and reducing exposure in certain asset classes. Everyone knows what it means. They're pulling their money. Of the original $2 billion, roughly $1.2 billion begins to flow back to Riyadh. Quietly, gradually, but unmistakably. Even Saudi Arabia wants distance now. 6 months after the hearing, the bills come due all at once. The SEC announces a $75 million fine for material misrepresentation in fund marketing documents and failure to disclose conflicts of interest. The IRS launches an audit, not just of the fund, but of Kushner personally. They dig into how foreign income was reported, how partnerships were structured, how taxes were paid. The result? $50 million in back taxes and penalties. The letter arrives by certified mail, thick with legal language, but summed up in 2 words. Pay up. Then come the civil suits. Jamal Khashoggi's family files in federal court for $600 million in damages, accusing Kushner of unjust enrichment, conspiracy to cover up murder, aiding and abetting human rights violations. Legal experts call it a long shot, hard to prove, hard to connect directly. But the family's lawyer tells reporters, "We don't need to win. We need him under oath. We need the truth on record." The case moves forward. Discovery begins. Kushner fights every subpoena, every deposition, every document request. His lawyers file motion after motion, delay after delay. But the process grinds forward, slow, relentless, inevitable, like a glacier flattening everything in its path. 1 year after the hearing, Affinity Partners is finished. With Saudi Arabia pulling its capital, investors fleeing, and investigations mounting, the firm quietly shuts down. There's no press conference, no farewell letter, just an SEC filing and a short note in the Financial Times. The settlement talks with the Khashoggi family drag on for months. Lawyers on both sides negotiate numbers, rise and fall, until finally an agreement is signed. Jared Kushner will pay $60 million, not the $600 million they demanded, but not nothing either. 12 years, $5 million per year. The lawyers insist on specific language. Each payment must be made directly to the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. The checks must bear the full name Jamal Khashoggi. No wire transfers, no initials. So every year for 12 years, Jared Kushner will sign a check with the name of the man whose murder he helped cover up. That's when the last personal collapse begins. Page 6 breaks the story. Ivanka Trump has filed for separation. The sources are anonymous, but everyone knows it's real. She loves her husband, one friend tells reporters, but the name has become toxic. It's hurting her brand, her children, her future. The divorce proceedings are brutal. Ivanka's lawyers demand total distance, proof she didn't know, wasn't involved, wasn't complicit. They want to protect her image, her children, her career. In the final agreement, she gets $400 million, the houses, primary custody, and the right to use her maiden name again. Kushner keeps what's left, what the fines, taxes, settlements, and withdrawals haven't taken. He keeps the name, and the infamy, and the 37 seconds that will follow him forever. 2 years after the hearing, Jared Kushner becomes something new. Not powerful, not protected, but radioactive. No one wants to be near him. The European Union quietly adds him to a heightened scrutiny list. Not a formal travel ban, but every border crossing becomes an interrogation. Canada follows. Then Australia, Japan, South Korea, 23 countries in total. He can still travel technically, but in practice he can't go anywhere that matters. He can't expand business. He can't meet investors. He can't attend conferences or speak on panels. The doors that used to open automatically now stay locked. Even his children aren't spared. They have to change schools after parents complain. Teachers whisper. Other kids say cruel things, but not lies. Your dad helped kill a journalist. Your dad sold America. Your dad couldn't answer if he was a traitor. Eventually, Ivanka petitions the court to let the children change their last name. The request is granted, quietly sealed for privacy. They become her children now, not his. Kushner moves into a smaller Miami office. Not the gleaming tower he once planned, but a modest space no one notices. His staff shrinks from 15 people to 3. Most leave because they can't stand the association. You can't list affinity partners on your resume without someone asking about blood money. He's still wealthy, lives in a nice house, drives an expensive car, but by his old standards, he's reduced. A shadow of what he once was or thought he'd be. 3 years after the hearing, he sits alone in that quiet office. The check for the Khashoggi settlement lies on his desk, $5 million, the 10th payment of 12. It's due every October 2nd, deliberately chosen by the lawyers so he can never forget the date. He logs into the bank, initiates the transfer, and watches the confirmation appear. Funds sent to the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. Then he closes the laptop and sits in silence. No meetings, no staff, no noise, just the hum of the air conditioner and the weight of what he's done. He runs the numbers in his head because that's what he's always done. He started with $2 billion, lost $75 million to the SEC, $50 million to the IRS, $80 million in legal fees, $60 million to the Khashoggi settlement, $400 million in divorce, $1.2 billion withdrawn by the Saudis. What's left? Roughly $280 million. Still rich, but not powerful, not respected, not free. And the cost? Everything else. His marriage, his children's names, his reputation, his business, his legacy. 37 seconds of silence bought him all of this. He stares at the wall for a long time, wonders if it was worth it. Wonders what Jamal Khashoggi's last thoughts were. Wonders if that face will ever stop appearing in his dreams. He knows the answer. It never will. Every October 2nd, he'll write another check with that name. Every year, he'll remember. Every time he looks at the number $5 million, he'll know exactly what it paid for. And those 37 seconds, they'll follow him forever. 5 years after the hearing, Representative Jasmine Crockett sits in her congressional office. The 4 boxes are still there beside her desk, red, black, blue, and white, untouched but never forgotten. They hold the story that defined her career and maybe a piece of history itself. On the wall hang 3 framed items. The first, a photo of Jamal Khashoggi, smiling, alive, glasses catching the light. The second, the leaked Saudi due diligence report stamped, "Do not invest." The third, a screenshot from the hearing, Jared Kushner's face caught mid-silence. Hand on his wedding ring. She keeps them there as reminders, not of victory, but of truth. This afternoon, she's meeting with a group of Georgetown law students studying constitutional law and congressional oversight. 20 of them sit around the long table, notebooks open, laptops ready. They've all watched the hearing. They've read the transcripts. They know about the 37 seconds. A young student, confident, maybe too confident, raises a hand. Did it matter? I mean, really? Did anything change? Kushner's still rich. He's not in prison. Crockett looks at the photo on her wall for a long time before answering. She's learned to take her time. Justice is complicated, she says finally. Wins aren't always clean. Sometimes exposure is the victory. She gestures toward Khashoggi's photo. Jamal believed truth mattered, that exposing corruption, demanding accountability, speaking truth to power, those things were worth dying for. He was right, because Jared Kushner sold American foreign policy for $2 billion. That's not an allegation anymore. It's a documented fact in the congressional record. Saudi Arabia's own advisors said, do not invest. But MBS gave him the money anyway. And everyone knows why. The room is silent. Students type quietly. Crockett explains how she couldn't recover the money, couldn't send him to prison. The system protects certain people, she says evenly. The DOJ tried. The grand jury couldn't reach indictment. The law gets complicated when power and privilege meet. But I made sure everyone knows what he did, made sure the evidence is documented, made sure his children will grow up knowing what their father was. Made sure that when anyone Googles his name, they'll find those 37 seconds. She picks up a folder and opens it carefully. Inside is a payment schedule, 12 lines, each labeled October 2nd. She shows it to them. Every October 2nd, Jared Kushner writes a check with Jamal Khashoggi's name on it. Every single year, that money funds journalism scholarships for students like you through the Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. That's what the receipts are for. Not just to punish, but to remember. A student in the back, older, maybe a veteran, raises a hand. But is that enough? He asks. If he still has hundreds of millions left, if he's still free, is exposure really justice? Crockett considers the question seriously. She doesn't sugarcoat. 5 years ago, he walked into that hearing thinking he was untouchable. Today, he can't travel to 23 countries. He lost his marriage, his firm, his name, his reputation. His legacy is 37 seconds of silence. Is that perfect justice? No, but it's accountability. It's consequence. It's proof that power can't always bury truth. A journalism student raises her hand, hesitating before she speaks. My family is from Yemen, she says softly. We lost cousins in the airstrikes, the ones from the weapons he pushed through. I'm applying for the Khashoggi Foundation scholarship. I want to be an investigative journalist because of what you did. Crockett stands, walks to her, and takes the student's hands. When you get that scholarship, and you will, remember what your job is. The powerful think time makes people forget. They think if they stall long enough, the world moves on. Your job is to prove them wrong, to remember, to document, to keep the receipts. The student nods, her eyes wet. To make him proud, she whispers. Crockett smiles. That's right. To make Jamal proud. After the students leave, the office goes quiet again. Sunlight filters through the blinds, painting long lines across the boxes. The red, black, blue, and white ones that started everything. Her phone buzzes with a news alert. Saudi Arabia announces new democratic reforms under international pressure. Minor changes, small steps, but still something. The article mentions Khashoggi's name, mentions the hearing, mentions how the scandal changed global perception. Crockett leans back in her chair, thinking about how consequences ripple. She thinks of Kushner in his Miami office, signing that yearly check. Thinks of the journalism students who will carry Khashoggi's name forward. Thinks of the young woman from Yemen who'll demand accountability. No, it's not perfect justice, but it's something real, something that matters, something that proves the powerful wanted silence and didn't get it. The late afternoon light turns golden. Crockett stands and opens each box one by one. The red box first, the timeline of 53 documented meetings between Kushner and MBS, every one part of the pattern. The black box, the money trail, the $2 billion, the $25 million yearly fees, the fund structure that made corruption look like business. The blue box, the policy decisions, the weapons sales, the nuclear tech, the blockade, the protection after murder. And finally, the white box, Khashoggi's photo. The intelligence reports, the CIA conclusions, the proof of what was done to a man who believed in truth. 4 boxes, 4 colors, 4 categories of evidence, all leading to one conclusion. American foreign policy was sold for $2 billion, and a journalist died for it. Crockett runs her fingers along the lids of the boxes, feeling the weight of everything they represent. Then there's a knock at the door. A reporter steps in, young, professional, recorder in hand. Congresswoman, I'm here for the 5-year retrospective. Crockett nods, gestures for her to sit. The reporter starts the recorder. You've faced death threats, online attacks, even needed security for your family. When Jared Kushner isn't in prison and still has money, was it worth it? Crockett looks at Khashoggi's photo again. Ask his family, she says quietly. Ask the students receiving scholarships in his name. Ask anyone who believes accountability matters, even when justice is incomplete. The reporter leans forward. But personally, was it worth your risk? Crockett's eyes stay on the photo. Jamal Khashoggi walked into that consulate believing truth was worth dying for. They tried to erase him. I made sure they couldn't. Was it worth it? Hell yeah, because the alternative is silence, and silence is complicity. She gestures toward the frames on her wall. The receipts matter. Documentation matters because they outlast us. They become history. The reporter writes that down carefully, then asks, Do you think historians will remember this? Crockett smiles faintly. 50 years from now, someone will open these boxes. They'll read every document. They'll see every photo. They'll know what Jared Kushner did, and they'll know someone stood up and said it out loud. That's enough. After the interview, the reporter leaves quietly. The office is still again. Crockett sits for a moment, just listening to the ticking of the clock. Her phone buzzes again. 2 messages this time. The first is from Marcus, her chief investigator. New evidence from a whistleblower. Recovered Saudi encrypted messages between Kushner and MBS. Add to the files. She types back, Yes, send them over. Label under blue. The second is from Aisha, the journalism student from Yemen. I got the scholarship. Starting next semester. Thank you for showing me it matters. Crockett smiles and replies, Congratulations. Keep the receipts. Make him proud. Then she stands. Straightens the 3 frames on her wall. Khashoggi's face, the Do Not Invest document, and the screenshot of those 37 seconds, making sure they're level and visible to anyone who enters. 3 pieces of truth, 3 reminders. It's almost evening now. The Capitol lights begin to glow outside her window. Tomorrow will bring more hearings, more investigations, more corruption to expose. But tonight, she allows herself a small moment of peace, knowing she did what she could. Knowing she honored Jamal's memory. Knowing she proved the truth matters, even when justice doesn't arrive wrapped in perfection. The boxes stay, the frames stay, the evidence stays. And somewhere hundreds of miles away, Jared Kushner looks at his calendar. It's almost October again. Payment due, $5 million to the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation, a name he'll never escape. 37 seconds of silence that will follow him forever. 4 boxes in a congressional office that prove exactly what he did. The receipts never lie. They never do. Late evening settles over Washington. The Capitol's lights gleam against the dark sky while Jasmine Crockett sits alone in her office. The 4 boxes still lined up beside her desk, red, black, blue, and white. They've become part of the room now, permanent witnesses to what happened. She sometimes thinks of them as silent companions, each one holding a different piece of the truth. The hum of the air conditioner is the only sound as she goes through her notes from a new investigation. Corruption never sleeps, she's learned, and power always finds new ways to hide its crimes. But every time she feels exhausted, she looks up at the photo on her wall, Jamal Khashoggi smiling, and remembers why she started. The red box holds the timeline of meetings between Kushner and MBS, 53 of them, each one a brick in the wall of influence. The black one holds the money trail, every transfer, every management fee, every shell company used to disguise what was really a payoff. The blue one holds the policy decisions, weapons sales, the nuclear technology transfers, the Qatar blockade, the protection after murder. The white box holds Khashoggi's image, the intelligence reports, and the classified transcripts no one will ever unsee. Together, they tell one story. Truth bought and sold for $2 billion. Her phone buzzes again. A notification from the Khashoggi Foundation. The message reads, Scholarship cohort for this year selected 22 recipients across the countries. She smiles. The world may not always deliver justice, but it remembers, and that matters. Each student who receives that scholarship carries Khashoggi's name forward. She closes her laptop and leans back. From this office window, she can see the lights of the Washington Monument and the faint reflection of herself surrounded by evidence. She thinks about how time softens everything, even outrage, and how the powerful count on that. They wait for fatigue, for distraction, for people to forget. That's why the receipts matter. They don't forget. Down in Miami the same night, Jared Kushner sits alone in his office. It's smaller than the one he imagined for himself, with blank walls and an empty desk except for his laptop and a single framed photo of his children, the only personal item he kept after the divorce. He opens his email and sees a reminder from his accountant. Payment 11 of 12 due. Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. $5,000. The due date is highlighted, October the 2nd. He doesn't even have to look at the calendar. He knows what day it is. He always knows. He takes a deep breath and logs into the bank. The number appears on the screen, the zeros endless. His hands hover over the keyboard before typing the name, Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. He hits send. Payment complete. For a moment he just sits there staring at the confirmation. It's quiet except for the faint buzz of the fluorescent light overhead. He closes the laptop and presses his fingers to his temples. Every October 2nd, it's the same routine. Same wire, same amount, same hollow feeling. The lawyers made sure of it. They made sure he would never forget. He leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Once he used to imagine himself as a statesman, a bridge between America and the Middle East, a man shaping peace. Now he's a symbol, not of diplomacy, but of disgrace. The man who sold his country for $2 billion and couldn't answer a simple question. 37 seconds. He hears it sometimes when he closes his eyes. The silence of that room, the sound of the cameras clicking, the weight of everyone watching as his mouth opened and no words came out. He'd thought the silence would fade. It hasn't. He opens his phone and scrolls through the news. Another article about congressional oversight. Another story about Jasmine Crockett. Her photo appears beside a headline, Crockett continues push for transparency in foreign influence cases. He swipes past it, but it catches him anyway. The photo on her wall behind her, that same smiling face. Jamal Khashoggi, always there, always watching. He shuts the phone off and rubs his face. The numbers run through his mind automatically. He started with $2 billion after fines, taxes, legal fees, the settlement, the divorce, and Saudi Arabia's withdrawal. He's down to roughly $280 million. Still wealthy, but it doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like debris. The things he valued most, respect, power, legacy, gone. The doors that once opened automatically now stay shut. The invitation stopped coming. Even his former allies keep their distance, pretending not to see him when they cross paths in Miami restaurants. He still goes running on the beach early in the mornings when no one's around. The air smells of salt and seaweed, the horizon soft and endless. He runs because it's the only time he can silence his thoughts. But even then, he sometimes imagines hearing her voice, Crockett's voice, asking that question again. Was this public service, Mr. Kushner, or was this just business? He never answered. He never can. Back in Washington, the red light of sunset spills across Crockett's office. She's reviewing a new ethics bill inspired by the Kushner case. Tighter restrictions on post-government employment, mandatory disclosure of foreign investments, lifetime bans on security clearance for anyone with unregistered foreign ties. It won't fix everything, but it's a start. Marcus knocks on her door. You should go home, Congresswoman, he says. It's late, she smiles faintly. You know me, Marcus. I don't sleep much, he nods, glancing at the boxes. I don't think you ever will until they're empty. Maybe not, she says. But as long as they're here, people remember. Marcus hesitates before leaving. There's something else, he says. A new set of internal memos from the State Department about how the Saudis changed their internal investment policies after the hearing. It's interesting. Send them over, she says. We'll add them to the record. After he leaves, she sits in the fading light. The city hums below, traffic moving like a river of red and white lights. She thinks of all the hearings that have come and gone, all the scandals buried by time. Then she thinks of this one, still alive, still echoing. She opens her laptop and types a short message to Aisha, the Yemeni student who got the scholarship 2 years ago. How's the work going? The reply comes quickly. Tough, dangerous, worth it. Thank you for showing me the receipts matter. Crockett smiles. In Miami, the same message appears as a news alert on Kushner's phone. Khashoggi Foundation expands press freedom program with funding from annual settlements. He stares at the headline. The words funding from settlements heavy with irony. The money meant to buy silence now pays for truth. He shuts his phone off again. But the thought won't leave him. Somewhere out there, journalism students are learning the name he tried to erase, and his money is paying for it. He pours himself a drink, neat. and sits at the edge of his desk. The ocean outside is dark, waves moving under the moonlight. For a moment he imagines it all differently. Another universe where he'd walked into that hearing with answers, with courage, where he'd said something, anything, instead of sitting in silence. But that universe doesn't exist. All that exists is the silence. 37 seconds that erased everything else. He finishes the drink, sets the glass down and closes his eyes. Somewhere far away, a woman keeps 4 boxes in her office as proof. Somewhere else, students study his downfall as a lesson in ethics. He used to believe money could rewrite any story. Now he knows documentation outlives money. Receipts don't burn. The next morning he wakes early. No calls, no meetings. He drives along the coast, the city waking slowly around him. At a stoplight, a street vendor holds up T-shirts printed with an image. Khashoggi's face beside the words. Keep the receipts. He looks away quickly, his stomach turning. He drives home and pulls into the gated driveway. The house feels large and empty. His children's rooms are untouched but silent. He walks through the hallways, every echo a reminder of what's gone. He stops in his study. On the desk sits an unopened letter from the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. He's been getting them for years, annual reports, updates on scholarships, thank you notes. He's never opened one. Today he does. Inside is a simple card. Thank you for your continued contribution to global press freedom. Your support funds programs protecting journalists in high-risk countries. He stares at it, the irony suffocating. The thing he bought with corruption now funds the work that will outlive him. He drops the card back into the envelope and places it in a drawer. That night, he dreams again of the hearing room, the gavel striking, the hum of cameras, the silence pressing down like a weight. He dreams of the moment Jasmine Crockett said his name, her voice sharp and calm all at once. He dreams of Jamal Khashoggi walking into that consulate door. He wakes up drenched in sweat, the ocean outside gray in the dawn. For a long time, he sits on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The silence of the house feels heavier now. He thinks about the number, $2 billion. How simple it seemed then. How infinite the cost turned out to be. 7 seconds. He whispers it out loud, almost as a confession. 37 seconds. He wonders if somewhere in another office in Washington, Jasmine Crockett is still keeping the receipts. He already knows the answer. Morning comes slowly to Washington. Sunlight filters through the blinds of Jasmine Crockett's office, casting long shadows across the 4 boxes, red, black, blue, and white. She sets down her coffee, takes a deep breath, and looks at them the way someone looks at old friends they can't quite let go of. They're reminders of everything: the hearing, the silence, the fight that followed. Each box is labeled in her handwriting, the ink beginning to fade after 5 years. The red one reads, meetings. The black, money trail. The blue, policy. Decisions. The white, journalist. 4 simple words holding the story of how a son-in-law of a president sold out American foreign policy for $2 billion, and how a journalist's blood helped pay for it. A knock on the door breaks the quiet. It's Marcus, her chief of staff, holding a folder. Morning, Congresswoman, he says. Got a few things for you. Updates from oversight. He continues. Saudi Arabia just finalized a transparency agreement with the EU. It's not perfect, but it's something. They cited congressional pressure after the Kushner hearings. Crockett raises an eyebrow. After 5 years, they're still feeling the heat. Apparently, Marcus says, smiling. Also, the Khashoggi Foundation scholarship program's expanding again. 26 students this year. Crockett smiles too, softly. That's Jamal's victory, not mine. After he leaves, she opens the new folder. Inside are briefing statements and a draft for a press release. But what catches her eye is a small envelope at the bottom. It's handwritten, the return address, the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation. She opens it carefully. Inside is a simple letter. Representative Crockett, I wanted to thank you. My name is Aisha Al-Hassan. You met me when I was a student from Yemen. I just finished my first year working as an investigative journalist. Because of the scholarship, I've been able to report on human rights violations that the world ignored. You showed me the truth still matters even when justice feels far away. We're still keeping the receipts. Crockett sets the letter down and smiles. It's exactly the kind of message that reminds her why she keeps those boxes, why she hasn't let them go even after all these years. Because the receipts aren't just evidence, they're history. She glances at the clock. In an hour, she's scheduled for a hearing on a new bill mandating public disclosure of all post-government financial ties to foreign states. It's being nicknamed the Kushner rule by the press, though she never calls it that. For her, it's not about him anymore. It's about what comes next. Outside, the city hums with its usual rhythm. Staffers hurry down marble halls. Cameras wait for sound bites. Lobbyists whisper in corners. Power still moves the same way it always has. But she knows at least one truth is written into the record now, that even the powerful can be exposed. Far away in Miami, Jared Kushner stands on his balcony looking out at the water. The morning light glints off the waves, gold and endless, but he doesn't see it. His phone buzzes on the table beside him. An automated alert from his bank. Payment 12 of 12. $5,000 to the Jamal Khashoggi Memorial Foundation completed. The final payment. For a long moment he just stands there, the sea breeze tugging at his shirt. He feels neither relief nor closure, just the same heavy silence that's followed him since that hearing. He goes inside, sits at his desk, and opens the drawer that holds all the letters from the foundation. He's kept them all, unopened except for the first. Today, for reasons he doesn't understand, he opens another one. It's short. Your continued contributions have funded 36 journalism scholarships worldwide. Thank you for supporting truth. He closes his eyes. The irony is unbearable. The thing he bought with corruption now fuels the very ideals he betrayed. His money, blood money, as people still call it, has been transformed into a weapon of truth. He stands and walks to the mirror. The man staring back at him looks older than 49. The hair at his temples has turned gray. The confident posture he once carried like armor is gone. He used to believe silence could save him. Now it's the thing that defines him. 37 seconds. He still hears them sometimes. The endless pause. The weight of the question he couldn't answer. He turns away from the mirror, pulls on his jacket, and walks outside. The world still moves, indifferent to his ruin. People pass him on the sidewalk, some recognizing him, some pretending not to. A few take photos. None speak. By afternoon, the foundation posts a message on social media. Final payment received from the Kushner settlement. Funds to expand global press freedom programs. It trends for hours. Underneath, a journalist replies with 3 simple words. Keep the receipts. That night, Jasmine Crockett watches the same news scroll across her phone. She's at home, sitting by the window with a cup of tea. When she sees the post, she exhales slowly. So it's done. 12 payments. 12 years of reminders. The financial part is over, but the record remains, immortalized in transcripts, in headlines, in the minds of everyone who watched those 37 seconds. Her phone buzzes again. Another message from Marcus. Thought you'd want to see this. There's a link to a clip from the Khashoggi Foundation's latest event. On stage, Aisha Al-Hassan stands behind a podium delivering a speech about investigative journalism. Behind her, projected on the screen, are 3 images. Jamal Khashoggi's face, the Saudi report stamped, "Do not invest," and the still frame of Kushner's silence. Crockett turns up the volume. Truth, Aisha says in her speech, doesn't always win quickly, but it leaves a record. It survives lies, money, and power, because someone always keeps the receipts. The audience applauds. Crockett smiles, tears threatening for the first time in a long while. She whispers softly, "You did it, Jamal." Outside, the city lights shimmer across the Potomac. Somewhere in a quiet Miami house, Jared Kushner sits at his desk again. The screensaver on his laptop cycles through photographs. His children when they were small, his wife before the separation, the life that used to feel inevitable. He closes the laptop, opens a drawer, and pulls out one last envelope. Inside is a copy of the settlement document. At the bottom, his signature next to Jamal Khashoggi's name. He stares at it for a long time, then folds it neatly and places it back. The silence in the room feels familiar, not peaceful, just absolute. He stands by the window. Across the bay, city lights reflect off the water, a constellation trembling on the surface. The ocean breeze drifts in. For a moment, he almost speaks, almost says something to no one. But no words come, just silence, the same silence that ended everything. Back in Washington, Crockett prepares to leave for the night. She turns off the lights, grabs her coat, and pauses by the 4 boxes. Her fingers brush against the lid of the white one, the one that holds Jamal's photo. She whispers quietly, We kept the receipts. Then she walks out, closing the door behind her. In the darkness, the boxes remain, red, black, blue, white, stacked neatly against the wall. The moonlight slips through the blinds, falling across the photo of Jamal Khashoggi, his smile faint but unbroken. Somewhere, records are being archived, files are being digitized, history is being written. The story will live on. A congressional hearing, a murdered journalist, $2 billion in blood money, and 37 seconds of silence that spoke louder than any defense ever could. Years from now, someone will stumble across the transcript, the photos, the documents. They'll read the testimony and see the still frame of that moment. Kushner, frozen, speechless, the truth hanging in the air. And they'll understand. The receipts never lie. They never do.